Let's do this thing called podcasting. Woo, 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 woo. Woo, woo, woo. Woo? Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us to this episode. Oh no, I said it. Welcome to the episode of This Is Sus. And I am your host, April, along with my beautiful co-hosts,
Lori
and Nicole. Woo, woo, woo. Nicole, Lori, the nosebreaker, as we've heard. So let's go into and actually do our icebreakers.
Do you remember the icebreaker math?
Huh?
You can't, like, I can't do Lori and Lori can't do me back and forth because then you would have to do your own, that kind of thing?
So, like, if you take one, you have to pick one of us too. And then whichever one of us has to pick you.
And then the third person picks the last unpicked person.
You know what? I'm just gonna...
You go first. You go first.
Why?
Because of this.
I don't care if it's uneven.
I care.
Oh, of course you care. And they've told me that I go first because I don't understand icebreaker math.
It's true.
I do understand it. I just don't want to follow it. But Nicole's a stickler.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh man. Okay. Lori, I feel like you'll have a quirky answer for this. Yeah. Lori, if you were a ghost, how would you haunt people?
Oh, I would for sure move things around. Things that are like inconvenient. So things like, I don't know, every once in a while, if it was somebody I didn't really like, I'd like move the toilet paper like away from them. So because that'd be really awkward and frustrating. And they'd be like, what's going on? And I'd be like, it's me. And like moving your keys, like, you know, I always have a hook for my keys and I put them there all the time. But even if somebody had a hook, I'd be like, let's stick these in the fridge. You know what I mean? Like
an
places,
awkward place.
like things that you would never think to look at.
I just realized that I don't have ADHD. I'm being haunted.
Yeah.
All the time.
All of these things that you're saying conveniently matches what's happening to me on
These
a regular
are my
basis.
symptoms.
Yes. Poltergeist. But it's weird because you're alive.
Am I? We don't know. Maybe that's suspicious.
You seem like you're here.
Don't punch her in the nose.
I do not want to risk putting it the wrong way. Then she'll have to go through a series of nose breaks to get it right again.
That's right. That's how it
Breaks their
rolls.
nose 4 times. How are you even alive? Anyway.
That's the question.
Is she
Maybe
though?
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Anything else you would do, or is that your final answer?
I think that's my final answer because I don't want to be like rude in a way, but I do want to like inconvenience them for the funny factor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good answer. I
like it.
appreciate
Thank you.
it. Yep.
Okay. No, we've done that one. Okay, April.
Oh.
Are there any specific animals you are afraid of, and why?
I know why you asked me this. Yes, I am afraid of birds. I'm afraid of birds a lot. Actually, this past weekend, I went to the island with my boyfriend and his family, and we stopped at this like farmer's market along the highway. And it's like one of those ones that you go in and they sell all these like quirky things and usually, I don't know, homemade things like pie and like fruits and whatever. It's like a fruit stand, but they're like all over the place here. While I was there, they also had ice cream. It was indoors, by the way. And the lady is selling me, like letting me test all these ice cream flavors, and she's really trying to get me to buy it. And I'm like, okay, I'll get some. And they were actually really good. I can't remember what the place is called. And then she's like, oh, look at that. And I'm like, what? And I thought it was June behind me because I heard him. But it wasn't him. It was a bird inside the building. And I screamed. And I had like items in my hands that I planned to buy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was tapping to buy, like I was using Apple Pay to pay for my food or my ice cream. And I tapped and then I was like, give me my food. And then I like left. I left all the stuff I was planning to buy. It literally fell on the ground and I got the heck out of there because there was birds flying around inside. And I literally screamed and I went and I was like, June, where were you? And he was outside. And I was like, ugh. I left all my stuff on the ground in there. Can you go get it and pay? And he had gotten into the car, and I explained to him the scary scenario, and he did not feel for me enough. He felt bad. I let the pasta noodles that were shaped as sombreros that I was going to purchase. I know they were amazing. I had dropped them on the ground, and he's like, look, I don't feel like going in there. What if they're broken? And I was like, we should still buy them. I did break them. Anyway, long story short, he did not go back in. I could not go back in.
Yeah.
And we just kept driving. And so if you own that store and I broke your sombrero pasta, I'm so sorry. So enough about that. Next.
Wait, I have to tell you, in all my looking online for sus stuff, I have discovered that there are actually a group of conspiracy theorists who do not believe birds are real.
Birds are not real.
Birds are not real.
Well,
They're
what are
all
they?
spy thingies. I didn't really look too much into it. I don't understand, like, I haven't bothered to look it up to find out, like, what they thought was happening with birds in, like, previous centuries before we had drones. But, yeah, it's a whole thing.
I know people who believe in that. I'm not going to say, but I know who they are. They know who they are. Yeah. Yeah. You may end up meeting some of these people. You may not. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're great people. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying they would believe that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know what? If they want to believe that, that's fine. It's not up to me to persuade them either way.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Okay, your go.
Do you believe that, Lori?
Do I believe
The birds are possibly spy creatures and not real?
Well, I mean, I
Are you one of those people?
don't believe that all birds are, but I
Okay.
believe that there could be drones that are
Yeah.
look
Oh,
like
yeah.
birds for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I
and
don't
like
mean-
carrier pigeons back in the day, like they were, sending a message and whatnot. But
Yeah.
like birds are birds too.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. There was definitely a bird behind me when I was buying ice cream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we asked you
Let me
the
see.
cartoon character one. If you could swap lives with a cartoon
No.
character.
It's a cartoon. It's a different one.
Oh, okay.
If I could swap lives with a cartoon character?
Yes. So, Nicole, if you had to swap lives with any cartoon character, who would it be?
I don't even remember cartoon characters.
I'm sorry. What?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
What about a Disney movie?
Sure. Okay, let me think about that. I mean,
Let it go.
no.
Let it
No. Never. Never that.
I used to sing that to her when we
Sure,
were
let's
roommates.
do Beauty and the Beast. At the very end, he's already switched.
She chose the bear, that's for sure.
She chose the bear. He switches, turns into a guy who's less of a jerk than he was before he met her.
Yeah.
And, she's wealthy. Her dad's okay. Gaston gets his butt kicked. I'll be Belle. Well,
Yeah.
And she has a huge library. Huge library.
Yeah, that makes sense for
Big
you.
selling point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
you're
can
a
see
reader.
that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
All you need to do is sing. Be able to sing.
Okay. I mean, I do sing.
I know, that's why I changed it. Because I
But
saw
not
you
well.
open your mouth, and I was like, wait, I gotta change that.
Yes.
All right, well, I guess that ends our icebreakers.
Yes.
So I've already forgotten who's going first. Is it you? Or
It's me.
It's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this one is called Tesla blocks owner from selling his new Cybertruck. So I initially found this on Reddit on our facepalm, and I got the rest of the details from Business Insider and the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter.
Twitter.
So Blaine Radden was in Bali with his wife when he watched the Cybertruck launch. Without hesitation, he placed his pre-order. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, and Radden finally had his new Cybertruck. But his excitement quickly turned to frustration. Last week, he took to the platform X to announce that he wanted to return the truck. Tesla, however, isn't having it. They won't buy it back or let him resell it. So here's where things get complicated. When Radden signed Tesla's motor vehicle order agreement, there's a clause specifically for the Cybertruck. It stated that he couldn't resell the vehicle for a year. If he did, Tesla could sue for up to $50,000 or whatever he made from the sale, whichever was higher. They could also refuse to sell him any more cars. Since ordering the Cybertruck, Radden's life has changed drastically, though. So he and his wife separated, and he moved into a new apartment where the Cybertruck barely fits into the parking space. Radin, who has owned several Teslas, didn't consider the size of the Cybertruck in his new living situation. When it arrived, it was much bigger than he anticipated, requiring a 4-point turn just to park it. Oof. Getting in and out is also a struggle because there's really limited space on either side. His building has allowed him to keep the truck, but advised it won't be liable if it gets damaged because it sticks out of the parking space. On May 22nd, Radin emailed the Tesla dealership manager in Salt Lake City explaining his problem and asking to return the truck. He didn't detail his changed circumstances in that email, but he did refer to his prior conversation with the same manager where he had told the manager about the issues with the truck's size. And Radin proposed 4 solutions: either reverse the transaction, trade the Cybertruck for a Tesla sedan, sell it back to Tesla, or allow him to sell it without a profit. The next day, May 23rd, the manager responded. He acknowledged that according to the contract, Tesla could make an exception if an owner's situation changed unexpectedly and could buy the vehicle back at a loss to the owner. But he rejected Radin's reasons as insufficient and refused to buy back the truck. And he reminded Radin that he was bound by the 1-year no resale clause. So the same day, Radin posted on the social media site X. He wrote, "Tesla has refused my request to sell my recently purchased Cybertruck. They do not want to buy and have told me I can't sell. It does not fit into the complex I live. I found that out the day I brought it back. What can I do? Not trying to make a profit. I just need to sell my Cybertruck. I plan on purchasing a Model 3 to replace it. This is my 4th Tesla and I can't believe I'm in this position. They can tell me they don't want to buy it and I can't sell it. Do I need an attorney? I don't want to violate my contract. I immediately notified Tesla in writing when I found out that my circumstances had changed and I was not able to make the Cybertruck work. If I had been able to test drive it and take it home, I could have avoided this." Radin also replied to the manager's email with a detailed explanation of his situation. So before, he had lived in a single-family home, which he had moved now to a condo, and he wasn't seeking a profit, and he understood that he'd take a loss if Tesla repurchased the vehicle. "I'm trying to remedy an unfortunate circumstance," he wrote. "Making me keep a truck that does not fit my circumstances appears to be unfair and not at all in the spirit of the no-sale language in the contract." More than a week later, Tesla has not responded to him, and Radin has no solution.
Oof. I think if he did get an attorney, I think that would probably help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely, like, that would be my suggestion, is just going and talking to an attorney, because this is a big corporation you're dealing with here, and you don't know, like, they have legal team, so you want to have somebody kind of on your side who's, this is the steps you have to take. You're doing the right thing. This is what we do next.
Yeah, like I think when you say the dealership knows that they have such a huge team behind them and they know that he doesn't. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to make the sale. I mean, honestly, I would be all over social media about it because social media pressure has changed a lot of sticky situations for people. Mm-hmm. And especially if it deals like dealerships and all of that, they do deal with customer service, and especially that dealership. I know it's Tesla, but different dealerships do different things, and maybe they can do a smear campaign on that dealership or something. I don't know. I think he needs an attorney and see what the attorney says.
Yeah, because it said that, if your circumstances change, like there was a clause for that, right?
Yeah, there's a buyback clause that talks about if they buy it back, he has to pay a certain amount per kilometer, and then a loss for any repairs that might need to be done as well.
Yeah, but they've really just stonewalled him.
No,
they've just said no.
But yeah, his circumstances going from like a single family home to a condo. First of all, it's very different. Like, your parking is going to change, and
also the Cybertrucks. I'm sorry, if people like those, they look weird.
Isn't that what we drove by the other day?
I just thought it was so ugly. Yeah.
They look weird. But also in a year, if you have a buyback clause for a year, after a year, there are going to be people who want them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you can find a place to park it, and whatever after that year, you could make some money.
Yeah. That's true too.
Yeah, I was reading through X, and there were people actually posting right on there publicly saying, hey, contact me. I'll lease this from you for like $1 less than what you're paying. People who are waiting for a truck, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but they're not there on the list. But what do you think about the whole Tesla not honoring kind of the spirit of the contract, that he's just, this guy is struggling. He's been through a massive life change. People were commenting that he should have measured the parking spot, but honestly, it wouldn't occur to me.
How do you do that when you ordered it?
It wouldn't occur to me to measure a parking spot. Like, I just think of parking spots as parking spots.
Yes, and that's the thing, though, is when he ordered the truck, he was married and lived in a house. So he probably had a drive, even if he didn't have a garage or a carport
parking.
even, he probably had street parking
Yeah.
or a driveway, that it wouldn't matter how big the vehicle was.
Yeah.
You know, whereas now you're like, I've lived in an apartment, and the parking stalls in an apartment are tricky.
Yeah.
You know, you got pillars you got to deal with and other drivers, and when you have a really large vehicle, there's a good chance it will get damaged.
In daily life, like in life, you do move, and parking stalls are different when you go to different places. So
Yeah, his circumstances definitely changed. So for them to say that they don't accept his reasoning is a little bit wild.
yeah, I
Yeah.
disagree.
I feel bad for him too. Like, his whole life is kind of blown up. His move was actually out of state. And then you've got this one thing you're looking forward to, and it doesn't work out. And this company that you've been, like, he's clearly drinking the Kool-Aid on this company. He still wants to buy another Tesla.
Also,
Just messes with you.
you have the money for an attorney if you have the money for a Tesla or multiple of them. Get an
Especially the
attorney.
truck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those trucks are not cheap.
They're not cheap.
They're
And
not
he's already
cheap.
wanting to get another one. And like, there are definitely good things about how owning a Tesla, like not having to pay the gas prices and whatever. Like, some of them are nice. I'll say that, but not the Cybertruck, in my opinion. But I mean, whatever. In my opinion, get an attorney.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. Like, I was reading through the comments. This one person who lives in Germany says, here in Germany, and I think Europe, the seller has no right to the item once sold, so this would not be legal.
Yeah.
But the problem may be these cars have online functions, and you basically have to buy a subscription or license to use it. So people were talking about how if he illegally sells it, they will just refuse to resubscribe this vehicle. So they won't transfer a license. Like, if you sell your Tesla, the next person has to resubscribe and buy all of those extra services once again.
Yeah, but I think like after you've purchased it, you can change your credit card thing is in there or whatever, but you can just change the credit card, and then even if it's under somebody else's like subscription name, it doesn't matter. It can be anybody who drives it. They can't tell necessarily who it is. I would just be like, if I'm going to lease this vehicle to someone, okay, I already got the subscription for this. That's included in the lease. You, in front of me, have to put your card information in there. Don't have mine in there. Like, put your card number, whatever. And then, or I'll remove mine, whatever it is. And then you can use my subscription if it works that way. And then
I would personally, if I was leasing it to someone, I would just include that as part of their lease fee.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if they don't pay me, I would just cancel that subscription.
Yeah, some of them you can cancel. Some of them, like, but the thing is then they'd have to purchase the subscription. Like, you can do upgrades on a Tesla that are just behind a paywall.
Yeah.
If you wanted to pay for that upgrade, I think if they put it under somebody else who had a different address, if Tesla calls you, just say it's your brother. Like,
Yeah.
he's using the car now for a bit.
Yeah, Tesla certainly has like pay to play worked out, hey?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Some
you
of
buy a
the-
car
so
and you still can't really use it.
I mean, they can unlock it and upgrade it, which is nice. Like, so when you buy a car and you want to pay for just now the lower option, you like, and not all of them are like this. Like, some of them are actual like things you have to put on like the long range or whatever. Dude. Yeah. Anyway, when you purchase, like, you don't always like, if you have like the long range option, that's like in the car. But some of the other options, like if you want to have Wi-Fi in there, you want to have like whatever other options, I don't know what
Like
they
the
all are.
self-driving features that was
Self-driving,
talking about.
yeah. You can purchase those extra. So let's say it's really hard month, whatever, you can take it on, put it off, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I don't know. It is in a higher pay range than what I can afford.
I have to admit, like, I don't think I would like owning a vehicle that I don't own outright.
Yeah.
At some point. So even if I owned that Tesla outright, if I paid off the loan, I own it. I still have to pay subscription to use it well. And that's
I
not
mean, you
car
still own the
ownership to me.
vehicle.
But you don't. You can't really
I mean,
use
with
it
my
properly.
car, with my car, After 1 year, there's like a subscription base on it that I can't use specific things like the remote start and the unlock and like whatever on my app. I have to pay for the app.
Okay.
So like I still own the car, but it's still my choice if I want to pay for that or not.
You know, to me, remote parking or remote start is a long way off from like a massive self-driving feature, or say you have that adaptive cruise control.
Yeah.
Like if you just suddenly lost that and you had to pay for that every time, a major feature of your vehicle, I would not be into that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because we just bought a new Toyota Prius Prime, and it has like the adaptive cruise control and some like fancy
It has an
features.
app too.
It does have an app, but we don't pay for the app.
Yeah.
We don't pay for any of the features that come with the app, and like I could be
You could, though,
I
and
could
you'd
be
have more.
I could be like cross country, and I could lock my car. I could make sure that the car is locked from my phone.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, really neat. And yeah, I'm sure that there's other things in the app that we could, but we don't pay for the app, and I don't think we ever would pay for the app
Yeah.
if we had to. Like that would be sort of probably like a non-selling feature for us.
I can see scenarios where that would be cool to have.
Honestly, if I lived in a colder climate, I
Yeah.
might pay for that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't pay for a car or a subscription, or I wouldn't purchase a car where the major driving features
That's right.
are pay to play.
Yeah.
You know, I would have a problem with that. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't see myself ever wanting a fully electric vehicle at all. We went with the hybrids so that we still have the gas option because I want to know that if I want to get somewhere, I can get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it would be scary being
I think
trapped.
I think it would be nice to have like if you're going to go on a long road trip or whatever, being able to choose which vehicle, like
Yeah.
a fully electric for going around town or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. But like if you're going somewhere in a long trip, but honestly, there's so many fast charging places that Tesla or any vehicle that you can charge will literally take you there, and you can plan your route.
Yeah.
And it'll plan it for you. They've actually made it really well, and it'll basically say like your battery will be at this percentage when you get here. You have to charge here. You have to charge here. Get supper here. Like it literally, they will. There's like programs that will plan your entire trip for you, including where you can stop to eat. Like it's kind of cool.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
really crazy.
Yeah. Oh, this must be primarily in the States, like because the States I feel would have more. I was wrong. Like in Canada, they have so many, like they've done a really good job, especially Tesla have done a really good job at having different electric carports throughout, like all the way down the number one. So
Wow.
yeah, like you could go. I was looking because I was like, if I ever get a Tesla, would I be able to drive from BC to family members in other provinces with that car? And I thought, no way. And you could.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You just have to note the
Temperature. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a lot
in
of
the
them
winter
now,
time
they don't do so well.
They don't do well. The battery life in the summertime versus the winter are completely different.
yeah. And even my dad is really into this. So sometimes in my little peanut brain when he's talking, Dad, you'll be so proud of me. Sometimes when you're talking to me, some things trickle through. And I guess some of because they realize that's the problem, especially in northern areas, North America areas, and whatever colder temperatures, they have like a thing that keeps the battery warm, so it doesn't do that anymore. But it's a newer feature.
Right.
You don't have to
Yeah.
pay for it either. It's included.
Kind of like the old style block heater, but now it's
Yeah,
like
that's
the
what I was
battery.
thinking.
But it
kind
is,
of
yeah.
the
So there
battery
are
heater.
things,
Yeah.
but I mean, obviously, you'd have to buy a newer version. I don't think it's on anything lower than 2022. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's like in the last 2 years they figured that out.
Yeah.
Sus meter.
I mean, I don't mean to sound bad, but it's a rich person with rich person car problems.
Yeah.
It gets side eye from me.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly,
Yeah. I would say side eye as well, just because it's like I feel really bad for this guy.
I do,
but
yeah.
I do think that he can fight it. He has the resources. I feel like he can
Yeah.
fight it. So I definitely think it's more
Yeah.
side eye.
yeah, I'm doing more side eye too, like lower end, because yeah, it is rich person. It's like, oh, you poor person, because you can't fit your Cybertruck in your car.
Yeah.
Like, and you can't sell it or get rid of it. Okay.
The sketchier
And
part
you-
is Tesla and how they handle things. you
Yeah,
know?
I agree with
I mean,
that.
yes. All right. So moving along, we have Lori coming at us with a story.
Yes. So, so for this story, I'm just going to put a trigger warning out for sexual assault and miscarriage. So if that doesn't interest you, you can move along to the next part, which would be April's story. So this story is called My Best Friend Assaulted Me, and I Feel Like I've Turned Into a Monster. Oh. This is from Reddit. It's from the True Off My Chest subreddit. Thank you. This girl, she's a 29-year-old female, was sexually assaulted by her best friend, who's also a 29-year-old female. We'll call her B. 7 years ago, that's when this happened, and I've never told anyone but my husband. She is his best friend's now wife. Her mother died not long before, and she was having a really hard time with grief. She texted me one night when my husband and I were staying at their place. They lived an hour away from us, and asked me if I could help relieve her because her husband wouldn't. I said no. She came and did what she wanted, despite me saying no, and my husband was asleep 10 feet away. I felt ashamed and like I had just wanted to peel all my skin off and wash it. She made me bleed. I was in pain and I felt betrayed. My husband and I left the friend group due to her treating me poorly and her husband treating my husband poorly for several months. A year later, I told my husband what B did to me. I never told anyone else, and I never confronted her about it until 2 more years had passed. When we eventually reconnected, she was pregnant and I wanted to support her. I told her how I felt about the incident and she sobbed. I felt apologetic. I felt bad for painting her to be a bad guy. I told her I was sorry for bringing it up and we never talked about it again. Fast forward a few more years, I got pregnant. I got hypermesis and I lost 20 pounds and I miscarried. It was a very traumatic miscarriage that took 2 surgeries to get through and several months of recovery. She wasn't there for me, and when I was in hospital and I confronted her about feeling like I was being abandoned, my family wasn't supportive and she was kind of my support system. She apologized and tried to make up for it by visiting a few times. I don't think I realized how angry I had become over time. Months passed and she would occasionally say offhanded things like, "You wouldn't understand, you're not a mom," and "You're not a real mom." Oh. I have dogs. In general, she would complain about being a mother a lot. I love her daughter, and it hurt me to hear her complain as much as she did since I had a miscarriage and I honestly wanted what she had. It was a selfish way to feel, and I kept it to myself for about 7 months until she got pregnant again. I was happy for her and told her as much, but she talked about being nauseous every minute of every day. She could still eat, and I couldn't when I had my hypermesis, and also had to be tube fed if I didn't miscarry. I felt it was tone deaf. Again, I centered everything around myself and my grief. Eventually, I flipped out on her, and no matter how many times she said sorry, I just kept going. I think I never forgave her for what she had done to me years ago, and was also taking anger I had for my family out on her. We quit being friends after she told me she couldn't talk through our problems because it was around the time of year her mom had died. I got mad and told her to take all the space she needed. It took me this long to realize I'm an asshole, even if she treated me poorly and did bad things to me. I feel like I've become the monster I always told myself I'd never become. I got angry once I understood what grief was, and that it doesn't make you do things that she did to me. I told myself I'm better than that, but I never realized how wrong I was for yelling at her the way I did over her pregnancy. What do we think? What do we think of this?
I think that, one, when she said her, like, relieve me because her husband couldn't, but then it sounds like there was no relieving of her at all. It was more her doing stuff to her friend.
Yeah.
So, which is terrible. I'm so sorry that happened. But then that was never dealt with. Mm-mm. And a lot of times, if you push that under the rug and all of that, it does not, even if you try to move past it with that person, you didn't talk about it. You didn't get any closure from that. You've never dealt with it, even now. So when other things have happened, if you're already in the negative with that person, and hypermesis is, or like HG, is when you get extremely, like, it's like hyper extreme morning sickness.
Yeah.
And like, that is no joke. And people do end up obviously miscarrying. I think it's all around, it's a terrible thing, but because you are dealing with loss, like a miscarriage, you're dealing with loss, that doesn't really give you the right to be an asshole to your friend, but that also doesn't mean that she's a great friend. And so I wouldn't say you're a monster, because I feel like if it was somebody else, did you flip out on everybody in your all of your relationships, or just this one? And if you've only flipped out on this one, I don't think that you're a monster, and I don't think you're an asshole. I think you have unresolved issues with that person. And that's I don't think that actually they're your friend. What do you think?
I would agree with that. Actually, this whole friendship sounds toxic from start to finish.
Yeah.
So first of all, the text, she's in this person's home. Mm-hmm. And this friend says, "Will you relieve me?" Girl, relieve yourself.
Yeah.
I would never ask you that.
Well, I would just assume you were joking, but then like the dynamic of this relationship where this woman comes in and victimizes this other woman who obviously feels compelled to stay quiet.
Yeah.
You know, so she says, "My husband was 10 feet away while this was happening to me. Why? Why could he not hear? Because you stayed quiet." Like there's a whole thing going on.
Yeah.
The guilt and shame that this woman was feeling, even to allow this to happen to her without any sort of fight or feedback, I would say look into that, because there's this part of you, it seems like, that doesn't push back. And I think that's where this whole friendship came from, because you allowed this woman back into your life. So you and your husband left your friend group because they treated you badly, and then you wanted to reconnect later.
That is also that friend is friends with you because they are aware of the type of person you are. Mm-hmm. And so I think that likely my little spidey sense is telling me that this is not the first time that OP has been taken advantage of in some sort of way by that friend. Also, I think that OP has likely had other scenarios, maybe sexually assaulted, I don't know, where they just didn't use their voice, where they were uncomfortable.
Yeah, like do we think that there's maybe some people-pleasing tendencies with OP where she doesn't understand like boundaries and standing up for herself in her own power?
Her and her husband.
Yeah, because she didn't even tell him for a year.
But she wrote that they left the friend group because they were so badly mistreated. But even when she did tell him, there's no explosive story about the husband and going and ripping someone's heads off.
Yeah.
You know, like they just sort of processed this quietly.
Yeah.
And then...
But no, they didn't process it at all, actually. They just were like, oh, they just stayed in that mentality and thought being meek and quiet was what they needed to do.
And now she feels bad because she's finally blown up on this woman and is no longer supporting her.
Yeah.
But it's clear that this other woman is extremely self-centered because every reaction is all about her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let's flip that about, you know, it's not the first time that OP has been victimized. I don't think it's the first time that this woman made someone a victim.
No.
Nobody feels that comfortable to go and do that to someone.
Yeah.
You just don't think that up.
Like
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
agree.
times people who have these type of tendencies, people pleasing, and they meek, or they have a huge fear for whatever reason for sticking up for themselves. There are a type of people who are attracted to that.
Yeah.
And that is the type of friend that OP's friend is. Mm-hmm. Especially when I didn't hear a lot about how OP's friend was there for her when she lost her baby.
Right.
She instead talked about how she's not a real mom. And I think that is honestly more monster behavior than having a reaction, a very valid reaction, when your friend has been putting you down for, at this point, years. So I think instead of, you know, obviously these words, you're a monster, you're these things, I would bet my paycheck, I would bet everything I own on the fact that that is not even OP's words, that is her friend's words on
Maybe.
her.
Absolutely.
I would bet it.
Yeah. I could see that being true because of the way that the friend has been to her. So she was probably not expecting a big blow up, you know? So she's like, how dare you talk to me like that? Mm-hmm. You are a monster, you know, like that type of thing.
I've allowed you to be my friend. In spite
That's
of
right.
this.
You know, I just think that it's, like you said, it's extremely toxic and they just need to like cut ties altogether. Like there should be no more friendship or talking or discussions.
100%.
OP can
no
be my
reconciliation.
Friend.
We would be friends with OP.
Yeah. And you know what? I would kick that other bitch in the face.
I
don't know what I would do. I would definitely put her in her place. Honestly, people like that hate me.
Yeah.
Like people, as soon as there's somebody who I feel like in my opinion, I'm super protective of my friends. And as soon as I think that somebody is mistreating them in some way, I cannot shut my mouth. Like, I cannot. It's not even friends. It's family. I have caused family drama because I can't shut my mouth. So, like, it is just, you need a friend that is actually there for you. You need a girl's girl who's gonna come to bat for you, and it doesn't matter. That's the kind of friend you can have.
Yeah. And to recognize it, OP, what you need to do, honestly, go to counseling for a year, every week for a year, and then you will read this post with a new frame of mind, and you'll know how to choose different friends because you'll have more self-confidence and an understanding that the monster in this scenario is the other woman. Yes. That is the monster in this scenario, and she's been taking advantage of you the whole time. Yeah. You've allowed her. You've got to learn to not do that, but you are worthy of a lot more love.
For red flags, I'll give you some red flags. If you have friends who say, I have a hard time being friends with other women, huge red flag. Yeah. Those type of people are often not the type of people that you want to be friends with, invest in. And I mean, there could be different scenarios of why that is, but as soon as somebody has told me they're only friends with guys, they get along better with guys act a certain way, and they communicate in a different way, and that is a huge red flag for me. If somebody has said to me, like another woman who I'm considering being a friend with says, I don't get along with other women, I'm surprised I get along with you, I'm thinking to myself, like, we're not going to get along because you don't have my back. That's why women don't get along with you, is because you don't have their back. Yeah. And so that's just, if somebody says that, and I bet you your friend is like that, unless they're a specific type of person, get out.
Yeah. Yeah, because it doesn't specify like the type of people in this friend group.
Yes.
You know, it could be majority male in the friend group.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're
as soon as there's one person poisoning the well in a friend group, especially if that friend is somebody who I assume has a lot of maybe control in this friend group, if they've been if they've basically been run out of their friend group, according to OP.
The friend group obviously didn't have their back either.
Well, they've probably been fed a lot of whatever information OP's, like the other woman was talking and saying. And So what does the comment say?
I'm interested in some of the top comments.
Yeah. So, okay. So the top comment is, you aren't a monster. You never grieved, and you are in contact with the person who caused you trauma. Yes. Kindly cut off that friend, because friends don't sexually assault you. Friends understand consent, and you said no. Friends don't throw around taunts and trivialize your sufferings. Yeah. Your reaction is valid and normal. And yes, it took some years to let it out. It would have happened sooner or later. Cut that friend out. That's not a friend, just an abuser.
100%. 100%.
Right? That was top comment.
Best thing that ever could have happened. You are not you did that. Good job.
Exactly. So the second comment, OP actually replied to this one. So this comment, I keep reading this, and I'm trying to figure out where you are the bad guy in all of this. I'm not seeing it. And OP replied, I guess from my perspective, I wasn't justified to talk to her the way I did. I didn't go into specifics about the things that I said in the post, because it was mostly just me grabbing onto little things that she had said and never letting go, and chastising her even if she said sorry. In my head, I thought I was the only one being wronged, and I was totally justified to freak out on her. But I think I let build up anger cloud my judgment, which isn't right. It's not who I want to be. There are written messages between us, and I feel mad at myself when reading them. I wouldn't like if someone tried to talk to me like that. Despite my grief, I should have tried to keep my temper under control and approach with more empathy.
I will say, when you are grieving, first off, part of being a friend is being there in hard times and being there in easy times. It's very easy to be a friend, even in a relationship. It's very easy to be there at an easy time. And when you're friends with somebody, you can be an asshole to them as long as you recognize that you are being that way and that's not your regular thing. Being a friend is knowing that person is going through something that is not their normal. And of course that doesn't give you a right to talk to somebody that way, but it does give you the leeway. If you are a good friend, it does give you the leeway to have a mistake and have it forgiven.
I also think that there's a discrepancy in OP's beliefs about what a real apology is.
Yes.
So she said a couple things, like where she said in this comment, you know, even things she said sorry for, but obviously her behavior never really changed.
Right.
And also, when they finally did talk about the assault, the other person, the assaulter, cried, but I don't hear anything about, like, and then they decided never to talk about it again. But
Yeah.
I don't hear anything about changed ways. And from just the pattern of this person's behavior, I don't believe they ever did really change. It was all about themselves all the time, and they put OP down whenever she made it about her.
Yeah. Which, you know, sometimes you deserve to have your story be about you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you are the main character in your story. And if somebody wrongs you, especially in a way that traumatizes you,
Oh, yeah.
you are absolutely allowed to let out your frustration because they wronged you. And they wronged you in a way that is so personal and so, like, just traumatic that
Yeah.
you built up all of this anger. So it is completely justified in my opinion. I have a temper, and you know, sometimes, especially if you're like in a mood, or
Yeah.
you're like you're grieving over something else, or there's something else in your mind and somebody says something to you in the wrong way, or you take it the wrong way, you know, you let things out, and maybe you are harsh with your words or whatever. But if you can recognize that you have, you know, blown something out of proportion or whatever, and then you can apologize sincerely and say, like, you know, I shouldn't have taken it out on you, especially if it wasn't that person
Yeah.
who affected you. A true friend would want to be there for you through that.
Absolutely.
You know, they
Yeah.
would be accepting of your faults, because for me, my favorite people are the people that can accept me with my faults.
Because
Yes.
that's what real friendship is. You support each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a back and forth. There are good times. It's kind of a deposit into your friendship bank. But then you're there for each other as well when you need some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also OP has a really hard time having any intersectionality in her thinking at all, in the sense where she's very one track, like thinking that, you know, she's a bad friend because of this. And it is the whole friendship bank concept, if you think about it. One, I don't think that you should have invested in this relationship, but you did, and that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that once something happens that is so extreme, like a sexual assault, I think that there are some things that should be relationship enders.
Yeah.
Cut and dry, this one, exactly how it happened would be a relationship ender
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And because, you know, I have lost people, and I haven't thought I'm going to go diddle my friend.
Right?
Yeah. No.
Or
No.
take advantage of that person, cheat on your spouse.
Like, there's a whole bunch of messy things that have happened around that, like, it's not just that one scenario. That's what I was going to say. Like, she didn't just do that to her.
Yeah.
She made her friend uncomfortable by abusing her. She broke the sanctity of the relationship of her friend with her partner. She also broke her own relationship sanctity.
Yeah.
And the promises that they have made in communications with each other, and blamed it all on the death of a loved one.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely when you lose a loved one, you can make you are not yourself. But I know that you can do very extreme things like quit your job, or, you know, many, many things, drop friends that don't deserve it, or act out in specific ways. But I just don't believe that is necessarily means that you shouldn't be held responsible for breaking the sanctity of multiple people's relationships.
Yes.
I also don't think that just suddenly turns you into a predator.
No.
I think that kind of behavior is something that's built over time. And actually, just the trajectory of their friendship afterward shows me that this woman continues to be self-centered, and she was a predator. She felt very comfortable assaulting this woman
Yep.
in her home. And I just want to say to OP, maybe not today or tomorrow, but maybe once you do that counseling and you see things in a different perspective, it's not too late to go to the police, because this was an assault. It's a criminal offense, and it's definitely not too late to tell her husband.
Yeah.
You know, I think that all of that is appropriate.
Yeah.
It's just so unfortunate too that a lot of times, because this is clearly woman on woman from what it sounds like, it's just going to be treated less severe than what it should be.
Yeah.
So I think,
and there's a statute of limitations, but honestly,
it doesn't matter.
Being public with it and still going to the police and filing a report would be good.
If OP feels strong enough to, tell her story, there are so many people that can relate to that story and that whole scenario, to be honest. And it's just nice to know that you're not alone. So even if you don't feel comfortable going, or maybe you don't have the money to go to a psychologist or a therapist or whatever the case is, there are always groups that you could find locally to talk about how you're feeling, because all of your feelings are valid. Even when you blew up on this girl, your feelings were valid. And
that doesn't mean that, so even though your feelings are valid, that doesn't mean always your actions are valid.
That's
so that
right.
goes both on you and on the other person. But I don't think your reaction is out of proportion. So if you think about the proportionate reactions here, the proportionate reaction, you had an under reaction to her doing that to you for several years.
Yes.
And then because of that, because you didn't do that, the under reaction you had to that, she has overreactions to whenever you decide that you should take power back. And this is another sign of abusive behavior, is when, or of some sort of mental illness or some sort of maybe personality deficiency, if you want to call it that, when there's a situation and one party reacts in a way that is inappropriate. So like
to maintain control,
or, whatever, like the reaction makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like you have to do the major mental gymnastics to try to get to that point, and you still can't.
Yeah. And I'm glad that OP shared her story, at least on Reddit, because she deserves to hear the comments that saying you're not a monster.
Yes, exactly.
100%. And that's probably all that's going through there.
Also, what I appreciate is that she's not, you don't get the feeling like some people go on there, and even stories we've read, you can tell that they're putting out their version and they're trying to maybe not write everything. And she does admit that. But she's not, like, you can kind of tell when somebody's playing the victim and when they truly believe that they did something wrong. Like where they want you to say, no, you're a good person and stuff like that. Like this person is truly, she's coming to confess what a terrible monster she is.
Yeah. And she's being met with like appreciation and compassion and
having trouble accepting that.
And she's still having trouble understanding that.
And I mean, that can take time and therapy. So
absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, talking to other people that have been in a situation like this could really benefit her as well as the other people.
Like honestly, any woman you speak to has likely had something happen. Maybe not to that extreme, but has had something or can commiserate with that feeling.
Or has a friend who went, even if they didn't, maybe they have, a friend that went through something like that, so they can have that compassion for you.
You can have a tribe behind you, and posting on Reddit is a great spot to do that. To get your tribe and to get those feelings. If the feelings like, okay, I didn't do that. There's so many people, even if they're faceless to me, are agreeing, that can definitely help. And I hope that OP finds some
grace. She needs to give herself grace,
some forgiveness for herself.
And it's okay to not be friends with that person anymore. Like it is
encouraged.
It is encouraged.
Oh
That's
my gosh.
exactly right.
Do not go be friends with that person.
There are so many better people
we'll
out
be
there.
your friend.
Like hit us up.
We're available to be your friend.
We give pep talks.
Yes.
Yeah.
For whatever you want to do, whatever, we're definitely there to support you. This is terrible. I'm sorry. So sus meter. To me, there's like levels to the sus meter here.
I can see that.
I think for OP herself, like I don't think that she's suspicious herself at all. Only her lack of self-confidence definitely needs to go up. So
I'd give her a green on that.
Yeah, but I mean, you really got to work on that.
I think she herself is on the chill side. But what do we think about the abuser? What do we think about that part of the story?
I think she's, for me, majorly sus. Anytime you've been sexually abused or
you're
whatever,
abuser, you're a predator of people. Like I worry about this woman's children. She clearly just thinks people are there to serve her. Absolutely major sus.
Yeah, major
Yeah.
sus on that part. So we have a
Bing, bing.
we have a green.
Yeah.
For
you know,
OP.
we have a chill for OP,
Yeah.
and then we have a majorly sus for the
For the
other
friend.
aspect of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can go fuck herself, honestly, that
Yeah.
other woman.
Well, she wouldn't. That was the whole problem.
Yeah, that's true.
No, but you're not wrong.
You can wake up your husband or you can do it yourself.
It's called the self-service plat.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
There are toys for that. Like,
Yeah.
just
As long as you have batteries, you're good to go.
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it's just, I don't know, poor OP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I have a story that I know my dad will enjoy. When I saw about this, I definitely thought, dang, this is one my dad will like. So, Dad, this one's for you. I'm going to read out part of the title, but I'm not going to read it all out.
Oh.
Okay.
It's called I Was Taken from My Bed in the Middle of the Night. And it's on the subreddit The Truth Is Here. Oh, also this is from 6 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. So this is not super recent. Okay, so I'm a 28-year-old male. I live right outside Chicago, over the border in Northwest Indiana. I am currently pursuing a BAS at Purdue. I'm not exactly what you would call scientifically illiterate, and I consider myself fairly mentally sound. I have never had any problems on that front at all. It is almost 5 years ago to the day, shortly after my 23rd birthday. My father is very sick, so I was staying at my parents' at the time to help take care of him and the house. I awoke in the middle of the night. It was warm, and I could hear and feel the breeze from the fans that I need to sleep. I reached over and grabbed my phone, checked the time. It was 3:31 a.m. I put the phone back down, and I tried to get settled back into a comfortable position. However, after a moment, I realized I could hear and feel a humming. I then knew right away it wasn't from my fans. It was a very deep humming, and I could actually feel it in my body. Our house is by some train tracks, so at first I thought it must be a train, but I quickly realized it wasn't that either. While I was laying in the bed wondering what it was, I noticed for the first time that my door was open. My door is never open during the night. Hell, even during the day. Never, ever. And I could see a light shining down the hallway and into my room. At first I thought maybe my dad was going to the bathroom and had his flashlight out, but then I realized the light was wrong. It wasn't the right color. As I watched, it started to get brighter until it looked like someone had set up like a white-blue LED array at the end of the hall in the kitchen. And as the light got brighter, so did the humming. I tried to jump up and go investigate, fearing an intruder had come into the house, when I realized I could not move. Well, let me clarify. I could move my hands, I could move my neck, and I could move my feet. But it felt like someone had placed straps over my limbs and torso. After a brief moment of transcendent terror and confusion, I thought to myself, okay, I must be having sleep paralysis. I've, of course, read about it before, and I've heard about it before, but I've never experienced anything like this. Or, like, he hasn't had sleep paralysis before. Right after this, I realized I could no longer feel the bed under me. I started rising in the air and gently floating, for a lack of a better word, to my doorway and towards the light. He says, I know how this sounds, guys, but I'm 110% serious. Please just stay with me. As I levitated through the hallway and the doorway, and into the hall, I had a clear view of my parents' room. Their door is right next to mine on the left-hand side of the hall, and when walking out of my room. If you take a step out, turn 90 degrees, and take another step, you're in their room. Anyway, I could see them laying on the bed. I started screaming, begging them for help. They did not move. In fact, I couldn't even see them breathing, and at that moment, I was convinced they were dead, and I was about to be next. This moment of pure, unadulterated panic caused something to snap. In the blink of an eye, I found I could move my arms again, and I flailed impotently in the air. I eventually got my hands on the door frame and clung there for dear life. I gripped that frame like my life depended on it, because in that moment I wholeheartedly believed that it did. Mm-hmm. To my dismay, I realized my fingers were slowly slipping off the door frame. As I continued to be pulled inexorably down the hall towards the kitchen, I dug my nails in as hard as I could to try and stop it. In a quick burst of pain and terror, I lost my grip and continued to float. Typing this part makes me feel ridiculous, and I know how it sounds. Anyway, a few more seconds of terrifying levitation and I was in the kitchen, floating with the top of my head facing our back door. It is a large sliding glass door, and I could see that this is where the light was shining in from. Something that felt about as bright as the sun was hovering right above our pool, and we had a large in-ground pool that almost smack dab in the middle of the backyard, which is entirely fenced within a 10-foot privacy fence. Whatever this was had to be directly over the water and maybe a couple feet off the ground. All I took of this is I took all of this in within a heartbeat, and I was still in a state of terror I will never be able to adequately explain when I felt the breeze. My back door was wide open, but for the life of me, I can't tell you if it had been open all along or it had just been opened up in front of me. I don't know. At that point, I slowly began to settle back down onto the floor, and I felt a cold floor on my back, and my shirt had lifted slightly. Right as I touched the ground, I saw them. If I thought I had been afraid before, it was nothing compared to the moment right here. One stepped in and took a step to stand over me at my left side. It looked down at me, and even from my perspective on the floor, I could tell this thing was fucking tall. If I had to guess, I would say like 7'10" to 8 feet at the very least. We have 9-foot ceilings and in the kitchen, and its head was shockingly close to the ceiling from what I could see. The light was so painfully bright that at this point that I didn't get to take in a whole lot of detail, as it was kind of shadowed by the light behind us. Two more stepped in and took place on either side of my shoulders, standing by the door, almost like guards would. Keep in mind, this all happened fairly quickly, and at this moment, I began to have an idea what this is. The terror is unspeakable. I remember thinking they don't look anything like how they are portrayed in movies. They were skeletal, and their skin looked like it was, well, I have no idea. It didn't really look like our skin. It was just strange. The one standing to the left of me had something in its hand. As I turned my neck to get a better view, I could take in a little more of its form, its fingers. Christ. I can't even describe what seeing those fingers did to me. They were almost spider-like. They were way too long, and they had way too many joints.
Yeah.
To this day, that's probably the one image that sticks out the most to me. It was clutching this black, maybe gunmetal or dark silver. Hard to tell because it was smooth like glass, and the light was obscuring a lot. It was clutching something black, I guess. It reminded me almost like an iPhone without any power, but it was thinner and shaped almost like a remote or a very short rod with a squarish shape and rounded edges. Its fingers moved over it, and every single muscle in my body tensed at that time. The air shot into my lungs. They expanded all the way, and every single limb shot straight out. It was like I was planked to a piece of wood. My jaw was clenched so tight, I thought my teeth would shatter. I lost all control. The only thing I could move at this point were my eyes, and even then, I could move them very little. It was like the signals from my nervous system were completely disrupted, and another foreign signal was imposed in their place. The two standing over me or above me, while they were still laying on their back, shuffled forward a bit, and I started to raise back up again, feel fingers on my shoulders, and I began to hover out the door. And the second I got out the door, the light was so overwhelmingly powerful, and then nothing. I woke up in my bed, 5:45 a.m. I'm sweating bullets. My stomach hurts. I get up and I start going about my morning routine. I shrug off the experience as a dream, and it works. When I'm about to get into the shower, I notice a sharp pain, and I look in the mirror, and I have bruises everywhere. Arms, ankles, thighs. But the worst of them are on my shoulders and back. Very clearly, there were look like handprints, albeit elongated handprints. I threw up almost immediately. I try to pull myself together and head back to my room, and I see my door frame. I see scratches. They line up with my fingers. I see wood and blood under my fingernails. I have never entirely come to terms with any of this. My fiance has encouraged me to share, but it still feels deeply uncomfortable and jarring to just walk through it or type it out. My hands have dropped to what it feels like sub-zero temperatures, and my whole body is shaking. I'm sure if I asked my fiance, she would tell me I'm also extremely pale. This is what happens every time I think about it. After many nights I spent doing research, watching YouTube videos, UFOologists conferences, reading people's reports, the same things that always happens, or like similar things that happens to them. There was physiological responses, he's saying. And after a lot of reading and watching, I realized I had another experience when I was 5 years old. My earliest childhood memory. Most of my childhood is hazy. I have snapshots of memories, but this one memory I have is exponentially clearer than anything else. Although I've until relatively recently shrugged it off as just a quirk of being young, but I was never the imaginative child that claims to see what they imagine. I always had an extremely firm grasp of reality versus imagination as a child, which is why this earlier episode stands out to me. Actually, I want to stop and just talk about the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would, first of all, be so scary.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine, like, I've read and heard stories about sleep paralysis and things like that. So that alone would be terrifying. But the whole fact that he's, like, leaving his bed and then all of that situation happened and then waking up thinking it was a dream, but the scratches on the door frame, the blood under his fingers, like, would be very hard to piece all together.
Yeah.
You know? Like, what do you think, Nicole?
The whole time it was describing it, I was like, oh, I want to see what his fingernails look like the next day. But he kind of covered that base. So I don't know. If he's telling the truth and not making up a story, then it's either some nightmare that he really believed and scratched his way out of, or it happened. I'd also be interested to hear about his parents' experience of that night, if they slept through it, and his parents' reaction when they saw him, the bruises, and his door. Like, how do you just have all that there and nobody notices? I guess I'm just interested in evidence. Like, he writes very compellingly. He could be a great storyteller. If there's actual evidence, I'd be interested.
Yeah, I like the idea of, like, wanting to hear the parents' perspective from that evening, because they may have just slept through it or whatever, but maybe they also slept weird. You know, like, maybe they also had the sleep paralysis and maybe not realize it, you know? But, like, I personally, I do believe in other things out there. I don't believe that humans are the only things that exist in the universe. So I don't necessarily think that he's lying, even though he could be. But, like, the bruises, I don't know. I want to see pictures.
That's it. I want
to see pictures.
Like, he's a great storyteller right now.
Yeah,
unless there's
like,
photos, like evidence.
I feel like he believes it happened to him.
Yeah.
The thing is I am somebody who I have really wackadoodle dreams. Wackadoodle dreams. I'll say that again. And I have, maybe not to like such a huge extent where I have like scratches on a door or whatever, but I have definitely in my dream had like conversations. I've had full things that I've like either done or said with someone, or I've done something in my dream and I will wake up and that same thing has already been done in my real life. And so whether or not I sleepwalk and did that or whatever it is, I don't know. But just even if there is wood and blood under his fingernails, does he have a history of sleepwalking? I don't know. It's just, I'm not saying that aliens are not real.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm no one to say that. I actually would lean to believe that, obviously, I believe that there are other things in the universe.
Yeah.
And, you know, different things going on. How could there not be? But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I do. Like, I kind of can appreciate him saying, like, I know this sounds crazy. I know, like, I know people aren't going to believe me and it makes me feel sick just writing it out. Like, that to me feels like somebody who is, like, even if it didn't, he fully believes that it happened. Yeah. And he knows how ridiculous it sounds. You know, I feel for this guy in the moment,
yeah.
You know, like that would be terrifying, whether it happened or it didn't. Even if it was, say, you know, a dream.
It would be terrifying.
It would be absolutely terrifying. Yeah. Not being able to move your body.
Yeah.
You know?
Sleep paralysis it's
no joke.
No. I feel very bad for people who have experienced that. Yeah. But I mean, in my dreams, like I've definitely, like, I'm a very vivid dreamer. Yeah.
Well, that's because you remember most of your dreams. Like,
I
a lot
do.
of us don't.
I do. I remember almost all my dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams of recently passed on people and or like loved family members or whatever. Like I dream about all of that. And so I definitely am not going to be like, oh, I don't believe this guy. But I'm not saying that I do. I believe he believes this. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Like even if he showed, like, this is what I'm saying, is even if he showed the stuff that's under his nails and all of this other
Or
stuff.
a picture of the door frame.
I was just thinking, like, he were to show those things, I don't take that necessarily as proof.
Mm-hmm.
I would take I would take the bruises and that more, not necessarily like all of it will paint a picture, obviously. The stuff under his nails and the whatever. But the bruises is what would get me.
The hand-shaped bruises. I mean, maybe psychosomatic. I believe that he's either a great storyteller or he believes this happened to him.
Yeah.
And then, do I believe in alien abductions? I don't really know.
I don't know. Like, if I was going to write a story, I'll tell you this. If I was going to write a story and I wanted people to believe me, I would write it like this.
Yeah, like, I know
Yes.
you're going to think I sound silly.
I would definitely
And
say
I mean,
that.
there's great, and it's Reddit. People write these stories all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's what great authors do. That's how we get compelled to read books.
Yeah.
It's how movies are made.
Yeah.
You know, it is the thing of
Like, if he's really
yeah.
gone through this, yeah, I feel for him no matter what it was. Whether it was a real abduction, whether it was sleep paralysis, whether it was something else, like, he's clearly been traumatized if it's real.
Yeah.
And I do feel for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's go on to what happened to him when he was 5. All right, so to start off, he says, I'm 5. It's Easter morning. I wake up excited to go see my Easter basket. My mom always went way overboard. Dude,
Chewie, you're gonna have to leave.
you're going to be kicked out, boy. Okay. Chewie has a lot to say about aliens.
He is the alien in
Yeah.
this scenario.
You're
He
talking
truly
about my
is. He's
people.
like, I have to put in my own opinion because I am there.
Yeah.
Okay, so he sneaks down the hallway well aware his parents are still asleep and hoping they'll wake up soon so I can go tear into my massive basket of toys and candy. As I get to the end of the hallway, peek into the living room, I see it. At first, I think my parents are up, but as I get a clear look at it, this part is slightly fuzzy, he says. I remember it was big, tall, gray, and something about its skin make me think of like short fur or it is chewy. So naturally, I thought it was the Easter Bunny or my dad dressed up as the Easter Bunny, but at that time, obviously, he would have thought it was a real Easter Bunny. The thing's actual form eludes me, just that it was tall and gray. The weird thing is, when I picture it in my head, everything else in the scene is crystal clear. Everything except that. I can see it in my head, and it is like someone put a blur filter over the thing's shape. What they do for people's faces on cops. Okay. Maybe that's where I got the impression of the fur, or maybe it was really blurry in real life, active camouflage. Or it was just done after the fact, assuming it is what I now believe it to be. As I said, this experience cannot be substantiated by physical evidence, so I always just shrugged it off until recently. But something about that memory would often pop into my thoughts, like when I go to the dentist and everything is great until they lay me down, and the light is in my eyes, and the drills, sucking tubes starting going, and this primal terror sets in. Since that primary encounter is what usually starts flashing in my head, and the Easter Bunny experience, much less frequent these days, but still happens all the same. All these tiny and not so tiny things that I never really thought about before seem to make scary kind of sense in light of experience that I wrote about first. I do not know for sure what happened to me. I'm not going to say that I do. All I know is that it wasn't a dream. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I never sleepwalked. Oh, here's that answer. There was physical evidence of something happening. I rage at myself for trying to suppress it and not documenting absolutely everything, although the scratches are very so visible on the door frame at my parents' house. I can tell you all the things I know for a fact it was not. And as for eliminating those other possibilities, well, I'm assuming you know how that saying goes. If anyone has questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. But I'd really like to hear from other people who had experiences and how it compares to mine. That's what's the same, what's different, all that. As I was looking for any sort of guidance or help, I contact MUFON, MUFON, and they ended up doing a phone interview for like 2 to 3 hours.
Oh.
I wonder what that is. Let's look that up.
MUFON, it must be like...
MUFON. We're gonna Google MUFON. 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 At the Mutual UFO Network.
Gotcha.
So that's apparently what it is. It's a UFO network. Report a UFO sighting. Become a field investigator. There's a newsroom, a database. We are deeply involved in unraveling the enigmas of the cosmos, from sightings to alien abductions and formation of blank. Okay, well, that's what MUFON is. Good to know. Okay, so MUFON did a phone interview for 2 to 3 hours, and they gave me the name of a hypnotherapist in Chicago that could take me through it. But the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. They kept trying to spin it as a positive, trying to say they were benevolent, and that I can conclusively say there was absolutely nothing benevolent about them.
Oh, they were trying to say that the aliens were benevolent.
Yes.
Okay.
At all. Maybe not necessarily malevolent?
Malevolent.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily malevolent, but utterly unconcerned with the state of my well-being, for sure. I looked into one's eyes. Most of its face was shadowed, but I could see its eyes. There was nothing kind or benevolent there. I am positive that in that moment, I was a thing, not a sentient being, as far as it was concerned. It didn't necessarily feel robotic, more like aloof. I don't know. I could be mistaken, but what I am not mistaken of is that it was in no way, shape, or form a positive experience for me. All right, we had to take a little break to look after the dogs play fighting. But we're back. All right, so since then, I've been diagnosed with severe abnormal hormonal imbalances. I already had nerve damage and an implanted neurostimulator in my spine, so I've had lots of scans done. It was put in when I was 16 after an electrocution injury. Oh my gosh, this guy's been through a lot.
Yeah.
But a CT revealed an abnormal mass in my brain that was not there on previous scans. They can't say it's benign, but I can't see it in enough resolution to make a definite diagnosis as to what it is. Interesting. I also have a strange black thing under my skin on my left kneecap. Under my skin. It says on my left kneecap.
Left kneecap.
It does. Which happens to be right where the nerve damage in that leg is. Aside from the nerve damage, everything else that has happened soon after that experience. I have another strange side effect, but not 100% sure if it's the result of the neurostimulator changing my body's EM field or something else. What is electromagnetic field? Okay. But I blow out light bulbs. I can document it. I've had friends and family and professors at school, strangers, etc. witness me doing it. It sometimes happens with such reliability that based on the proximity and the type of bulb, I can almost tell when it's going to happen. The lamp that used to be by my bed, the lights kept burning out or exploding. Tried different sockets, broke out the multimeter, tested everything. All normal, all same result. Moving them away from me fixed the problem though. I've even had some of the professors in the engineering department take an interest in helping me figure out exactly what's causing it. I think he thought I was bullshitting him until he saw it happen repeatedly. Walking down a hallway with a low ceiling, 4 fluorescent bulbs burn out just as I walked past them, one after another. It happens all the time, but it's more interesting quirk than an actual problem. If we nail down a cause, I'll definitely post what it is.
I love how at the beginning of his post, he's like, I'm a normal dude with no issues.
Right?
And then it's like, oh, but this. Oh, but this.
Yeah, I burn out light bulbs.
I have a mass in my brain and a massive hormonal imbalance. That would in no way contribute to me believing this happened to me.
Yeah. I'm sure I left some stuff out, but I've rambled on quite a bit, and I'm really sorry about that. It's the anxiety. For people that had similar experiences, does it get better? Does it go away? Or will I likely have these subconscious triggers forever, as I suspect? If I try to watch a movie about an abduction, the psychological response is overwhelming. I watch a ton of horror movies. It's like my favorite genre, and I never had any kind of reaction like that or anything else. Sometimes while I lay in bed at night and it's quiet and I start to absolutely get terrified, I'll start to feel that vibration or see that light again. I want someone that's gone through something similar to tell me it'll get better, but I don't know if it will. Now, what do you think?
So with the hormonal imbalances, the electro thing in his spine, the mass in his brain, which could have been growing over time. I believe less that it really happened, but I still don't know. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that the trauma is real. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
100% he's having trauma responses, and he needs to get some counseling for that and some help, because, you know, it doesn't just make itself better. If you're having these trauma responses, you need to learn how to deal with them, like anybody who's had trauma. And so that's my take on this, is no matter, at some point, whether it happened or not, or whether we believe it happened or not, if his story is real to him, and he's not just a good storyteller, if this is real to him, he needs help for trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think either way, he needs help to get through it, because right now he's looking to Reddit for comments of people telling him that he's right in his thinking, that it's happened, or he's wanting reassurance that it'll get better. These people are not going to be the ones to help him. You know what I mean?
No.
The commenters are not going to automatically make you feel better about the whole situation. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
you're
know-
going to get the whole spectrum.
You're going to get the people that are going to be rude about it. You're going to hear the people that are saying, oh my gosh, the exact same thing happened to me. You know, like there's going to be both ends of the spectrum. And I think he needs to just work through it himself. Because whether it happened or not, he's living now, right? This has happened in the past. And the only way to get over it is to talk about it through somebody who can guide him through getting over the trauma, because that's when you hold on to trauma, more things are going to happen to you physically, emotionally. You're never going to heal, you know,
Well,
so
and I
you got to
think-
work through it.
Like, I understand not wanting to go through a hypnotherapy,
Yeah.
because like our brains and our subconscious are such complex things. If this is true, it's probably best, like his brain has blocked that out for a reason. That's what brains do.
Yeah.
And if it isn't true, he's completely convinced himself that it is.
Yeah.
And so your brain can create the most amazing things. That's what dreams do. And you can be totally convinced that is real. And our brains and our memory is not reliable. So as he maybe reads more abduction stories, or as he reads and goes through, he'll be like, oh yeah, that is similar. And then click, that's what happened. I believe now that he truly believes that it happened to him. Whether or not it did, I don't know. But I believe he thinks it happened to him. And he has read probably very detailed, because in this community, I believe detail is very important to these people. Especially if it does happen, you want to have as much detail in there as possible so that you can document the experience. That's part of it. If he's reading all these details, his brain is imagining what that is like. And then he clicks that into place. If that is what he's doing, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he has to go through hypnotherapy
No.
to relive this, to deal with trauma. I don't think that's actually necessarily a common treatment for PTSD. I don't really know. But
I think that the people who are asking him to do that are very self-serving, wanting more proof of alien.
Oh yeah. I think those people are definitely self-serving, and regardless of whether it did happen or it didn't, or other people believe that it happened or it didn't, he needs to be able to work through it, because now he can't even watch his favorite genre of movie without passing out, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I think that's probably the same thing for people that go through other types of trauma
Yeah.
as well. You know, you're watching something and it makes you relive that situation. Just like you were talking about a story another time, and I got very emotional because it triggered something in me.
Yeah.
And you know, he's deep diving. He's looking for more people to
Commiserate
Yeah.
and talk about that this is a terrible experience that happened to him.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe that is the place he needs to be to feel better. I don't know. But he needs to not be with the group that is like, yo, aliens, be my friends. We're all good.
okay, this MUFON group, I just want to say that anything that takes away consent is not benevolent,
Yeah.
right? Like these aliens, if they're real, if it happened to him, they did things to him that he did not consent to,
Yeah.
that he
Yes.
resisted.
yeah,
That
especially
is
like
not
the
benevolence.
bruises. The bruises.
It's kind of like how when he's explaining that to me, in my mind, I kind of akin that to animals if they could have that complex thinking and they don't understand, like these creatures don't understand fear and the fear that they must be in and whatever, right? So the only thing I can akin that to is they like it. Let's say you're bringing your pet to the vet and they're terrified and they're doing stuff. The pet cannot consent.
Yeah.
And so they are a different level of being, and they don't believe that we
have those rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
or even those emotions,
or
right?
even
Like
those, or they're not able to understand our complex emotions because perhaps their emotions are so much more complex or more whatever. I don't know.
Still not benevolent.
No.
No.
Not
Anything
to
that
us.
takes away like your consent is not okay in my books.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't say that something is okay.
I mean, they
when
have
it's-
language and we have language.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not like a dog, you know.
I'm just saying that's what it reminded me of. Like,
Yeah, it makes sense.
it was like they didn't. It's like when they used to think like babies didn't feel pain in the same way, so they would do the circumcisions and whatever when they're
Yeah.
babies because they can't speak to say. So it's just similar to that, I guess, in my mind. But I'm just talking, so I don't know.
I want to hear some top comments.
All right.
Some short top comments.
So some of them, I'm just gonna generally read them because some of them go into a lot. This one is upvoted by 218 people, like upvoted 218 times, and OP did respond. I have read many abductee stories. This one perfectly fits the bill. I find it particularly interesting that you encountered the tall grays. There are a few different variations of them. All of them seem to be able to gain control over our nervous systems. I am curious, did your nervous issues that you had improve after all of this most recent abduction or stay the same? I think in some cases they intervene and help, while other times they're merely studying you. I have a book at home called Real Alien Worlds, a brief cyclopedia by David McCready. This was a 2-year-long conscious astral travel exploration project, and he documented the species that his team encountered. Okay. Well, I mean, if you want to read that book, go for it. I'm sorry you had these. I like that he says he's sorry he had these experiences. For most people, they do seem to be terrifying to their very core. One thing mentioned in the book is that the Greys find it perplexing as to why we get so scared and startled by everything. Maybe they don't recognize fear very well, and that's why they seem so emotionless and flat. That's why they're called Greys, maybe? I don't know. Maybe because they're gray. I don't know.
Wow.
And this guy who's writing, he says, I am a scientist by profession, and while some people might think I'm lying, in general, I find these accounts to be very reliable and true. Scientifically speaking, we did not even know that mountain gorillas existed until 1902, and that is on our own planet. I'm not sure why people think we know everything when we clearly don't. Of course, there are other life forms existing in other galaxies and dimensions. You don't sound crazy, and I believe you. I will get back to you with other info, but feel free to PM me anytime. I'm more than happy to discuss and share any knowledge that I have.
He's very scientific, maybe, but 2 years of research through astral projection. I won't be reading that encyclopedia.
I mean, they did do these, like, I don't know if you've ever read any of those released CIA files. I went on a rabbit hole one night and read them. CIA files.
I'm not saying that
I
aliens
know.
aren't real. I am saying that astral projection research does not meet the scientific bar. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's hard to prove, but they did do astral projection something or other. I can't remember exactly what it is. If I can figure it out, maybe we'll do it on another topic that we'll do it in a known future. But they did do something with the CIA, and they did it, and it's ridiculous how crazy it is. And it was recently released, I think, over COVID. They released these files. It's also interesting that they released a whole bunch of different like UFO things and different sightings and stuff like that, and people have been diving into them. And there are some really, really suspicious things in there.
I'm sure.
What do you think, Lori?
Well, I quite like that commenter there. It's interesting how there are people that are going to dive deeply into this more and more and more. I do find it fascinating because I'm not going to lie. I absolutely believe in aliens. I am not myself. I'm not afraid of them. I've not done anything wrong to make an alien not like me. I used to say all the time, like, if the aliens are coming, I will go to the highest hill and I will say, like, I'm here to help you. Like,
Nice.
I'm your friend.
yeah, let's be friends.
Want a Kit Kat?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't necessarily believe every story that I hear. This one though is very compelling to me because he is so specific. But again, he could be a fantastic storyteller. So it's just so hard to know. But either way, I think it is fascinating, and it is something that is very discussion worthy.
Yeah.
I would actually like to know what our viewers, our listeners think about this story as well, because I'm just curious.
Yeah, me too, honestly. Like, do you believe in aliens? I have heard of like these things called the Greys before, not in great detail, but I have heard of people mention them before.
Well,
but
I believe
only
they happened at a
briefly.
mall recently. Like there was a mall. I mean, I want to say it was in Florida, but that's just probably because all the weird
Everything
things happen
happens in Florida.
But there was a mall somewhere in the States recent, like we're talking, I want to say it was maybe even last year, where there were reports of tall, gray, skinny, creaturey, alien-y things. And many people saw them. And then there was like hundreds of cop cars.
Wow.
I
And-
remember that. Actually, I saw
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know. I'm
And then-
getting goosebumps in my legs right now.
So people
talking
were like,
about
this
it.
is what's happening. And then after, I think it came out that there was a shooter, but people were like, I don't think there was.
That's right. That's right.
So
I don't
I
know
feel like
if
there
they were
was
trying to cover something up.
yeah,
But a
there
lot
was
of people said
stuff.
they saw extremely tall, like over 8 feet,
Yeah.
tall, skinny, gray things. And then the next thing you know, I saw videos of cops just lining the streets near this mall.
Yeah.
And like evacuating people and all of this stuff. So I thought that was very interesting because it was multiple people saying the same
Yes.
things that they saw.
Yes, exactly.
So it's, yeah. So, I mean, maybe this guy is absolutely right. It did happen to him. And for that, like, that is terrifying. But even if it was a dream, also terrifying.
Yeah.
But he just needs to work through it.
Yeah, he's got to learn how to process this trauma in a healthy way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he answers actually the other person too, and he's talking about how, I'm just going to summarize it. Basically, he's going to read the book, and then he just says that very briefly. But he says, as for the nerves, no change, although the electrical interference appears to have worsened since that. But that could just be a type of confirmation bias on my part, sorry. I just noticed it more, maybe. The company that manufactures the neurostimulator says, like, he's contacted them, and they said that electromagnetic interference shouldn't be that strong, but it does interfere with things on its own occasionally. They gave me a special card that has all the details for when I go through airport security or I set off a security devices in stores, but it definitely shouldn't be powerful enough for me to blow out 8 consecutive streetlights the moment I go under them. Fluorescent lights are a little more understandable, but still, overall, my health has worsened since these experiences. The whole lights thing, that's really weird to me.
It is. It's weird. I will say, though, I have a friend, been my friend for a long time. He has blown through so many phones because there's something with him and the technology that, like, combats each other. So if he's on the phone, he can literally just, like, the phone not explode, but, like, it will, I guess, implode, if you will. Like
Is his name Harry Dresden?
Right? I was just thinking. There's
No.
a book series called The Dresden Files where so there are wizards in this world, and the wizards their electromagnetic field around them is like magical, and they mess up any type of technology. So he can't have a cell phone, and he can't have a computer, and he can't have things that have like a lot of electronics things, computers going on in them.
It's so interesting to me. Like,
Maybe he's a wizard.
maybe he is a wizard. Kane, are you a wizard?
Are you a wizard?
Yeah,
Let us
because I
know.
remember he was like kept having to get new phones. I'm like, what is the matter with you? And
Aw.
he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what it is. There's just something with me and the technology in a phone that just like,
Expensive
But it
problem.
could also
it's
be
an expensive problem for sure.
like something that he's had this entire time where he sets his phone on or he does the same thing with his phone that is messing it up. I don't know.
yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, technology itself is crazy.
Yeah.
So- do you have more? Okay.
Oh no, I was just saying he's talking about when the government declassified that information. He said he kind of looked into that a bit, and it blew his mind. And that's what I was talking about. One of the heads of the project even resigned when he felt the higher ups weren't taking his findings or recommendations seriously. And like crazy that some of these people who are in the government, they are super high people in the CIA, NASA, or NSA. They're super high up there. They have multiple things behind their names, and their clearance level is through the roof.
Oh yeah.
These people are on the stuff. And then I don't know if you ever like watched anything on it, but they had like an interview or something like that. They had it was like in the court or whatever, in the Pentagon or something. And they were there, and literally they would answer with like they can't answer that due to whatever, or the things they could answer were fucking crazy.
I don't disbelieve it. Like, I think there's, whether it's aliens or other things, there's a lot more going on than we understand. I think a lot is suppressed.
Yeah.
So what's our sus meter?
Oh, I'm definitely what the sus on this. Like what the sus in like I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it is real, then that's crazy. If it isn't real, his trauma level is through the roof and we don't know what happened. Like there's just a lot of what the sus is going on here. I don't know. For me.
I mean, I would put it as sketchy because while he has trauma, there's no evidence of injury. I don't know. Like when we see people who are sexually violated and maybe it's similar. For me, it's sketchy because I find his story less compelling than, say, the girl that was assaulted by his friend. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
And I think he needs therapy to help him get through. For his particular part of the story, I find it sketchy.
And I think for me with this story, I'm going to say I'm in the middle of both of you. I don't think it's necessarily what the sus because there's really no proof. But I think it's a little bit more than sketchy because he is very compelling in his story. So I'm going to say it's majorly sus because there's a lot of aspects to the whole situation.
Okay.
So I'm right there in the middle.
I can agree to majorly sus. I can agree to that.
Okay.
If I were to write this, I would not, like, I would write it in a compelling way like that. I would. But it sounds like he's talked to and reached out to multiple people, and he's got the card and talked to the people who put in this neurotransmitter, and he's talked to, and just like, he's just done a lot more than...
He's looking for answers.
Yeah,
That's for sure. He's absolutely looking for
is.
answers, which I think is very interesting and also good on him. He's had this traumatic experience and he wants to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think that is very cool. But yeah,
I'll do majorly sus too,
Majorly
then.
sus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
I'll go with the majority vote.
Majority vote wins.
Middle.
Majorly sus.
Yeah.
It can be on the lower end for you.
Yeah.
So, like, you
Yeah.
can still stay sketchy, but above
Yeah.
it'll be majorly sus.
Yeah.
Because I guess I don't know.
I just think it's sketchy because maybe it happened to him, but he's kind of sketchy too.
He's got a lot of stuff
these
going on.
hormonal imbalances and brain thing. And
The
I
lead
don't
or
know.
whatever under his skin.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there that could make it not real. And that's
Yeah.
maybe where it lowers it in importance. But not the trauma. Not the trauma. I'm not minimizing that.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think? What would you rate? What would you rate all our stories? Would you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Yeah, like I read through and I thought, ooh, this one's gonna be weird.
Yeah, you're like, okay, stop. I'll finish reading it. On the end of
Yeah.
this.
I didn't read the part where he's 5 or the part about the neurotransmitter or whatever. I didn't read all that.
Yeah.
I was just like, what?
Right?
Yeah. So sometimes it's, I don't know. Dad will really appreciate this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I guess we'll say goodbye.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Also that. All right, guys. Until next time, be curious.
Seek the truth.
But most of all, stay suspicious. See, I told you I knew it.